It finally landed. Finally, Superman is here. Let's talk about it. Wait a second. No, I've screwed this up. We need to get a little bit more thematic here. Right? A little bit. No, you're right. It's not enough. We need to, let's upgrade. I'm a pretty big Superman fan. I thought a little bit about how I wanted to start this review. Wanted to give it a little time to process. Wanted to watch a few other reviewers, see what people were saying, kind of like use all of that to put together what I think is a pretty cohesive and all-encompassing type thought on the film. So I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to start with just breaking down the film, what I liked, positives, all that, and then we're going to go into some of the things I see happening right now and why I think it might be hard for you to get a proper review since some of the channels you normally get it through. So James Gunn's Superman. Look, this is the start of a whole new superhero universe. James Gunn's overseeing all of the scripts. He's the thumbs up, thumbs down in the gladiator arena of battling Hollywood writers, bloodshed everywhere. And the guy comes from a long history of superhero and nerd love and all that sort of stuff. So I think he's a good guy to have in charge of it. This new Superman movie is pretty simple plot-wise. You're going to have a Superman that is established. We're not really getting this massive origin story. He's in his world. There's superheroes in this world, there's villains in this world, the metahumans. He and Lois Lane, the love of his life, have just, at the early stages of their relationship and they're figuring that out. And Lex Luthor has a plan in motion to take this guy down. And you're gonna have super dogs and cool robots and all kinds of enemies and heroes doing things. And that's your basic plot here, right? Big villain, big hero, lots of interconnecting stories and fringe characters on there to support it. What I really want to get into is a real disconnect from a lot of the folks I saw talking about this. And I don't usually call out reviewers, but I'm a nobody. I can do it. Critical Drinker, I just watched his review and he more or less says, yeah, this is a good movie, but here's all my problems with it. And he talks about one thing in particular about this pocket dimension that Lex Luthor creates and then goes, because I guess that's just the thing you can do, and does this little laugh thing. And he's called out a lot of films for plot devices and plot points that push the boundaries of reality. And most of the time that's correct. But there's a real issue with that with this film. This is a comic book movie, not a movie with comic book heroes in it. This is a comic book movie, something I've been waiting an incredibly long time for. It is not a perfect film. It's a really good film, but it is the first time on screen where I've seen a movie just embrace what a comic book is. There's huge shout outs to All-Star Superman. One of my favorite all-time Superman stories, maybe not my favorite, but one of them. And one really cool thing with this comic is the origin story. The whole backstory of Superman is told in 4 panels. Little lines. You know what? Let's go story time. Superman story time with your host, JD Richard. Doomed planet. Desperate scientist. Last hope. Kindly couple. And that's it. We're into the story. I've seen some reviewers complaining about how it just drops you in that universe. Do we really need to know who Superman is anymore? Where he came from? I remember talking with my grandma years ago, and she could tell me Batman and Superman's origin story. Woman was like 90. Didn't watch a superhero movie in her entire life. But the mythos and the actual pulp culture that those two characters interact with and have maintained a connection to for decades, a century at this point, gets to everybody. Superman, the logo itself is one of the most worldwide known logos. Like, you can check it out. There's like corporate logos and you have Superman's logo. I think it's like 5th or 6th on the worldwide logo recognition. That's a character that is ingrained in society and humanity in a way that other characters just aren't going to get to. Another thing on the comic book side is these characters have gone through so many versions and changes that different artists and different writers have gotten a hold of them. They become inherently divisive because you're going to have people that are connected to ideals of those characters from points in their lives. You're going to have people that were touched by the Christopher Reeve movie when they watched it when they were 5 or 6 with their parents, and that's just who they see as Superman. You're going to have folks that grew up with the animated series, and that is their version of Superman. Just Vin Diesel as Lex Luthor would have been bang on from that animated. How it never happened. Call me crazy. He looks just like the guy. He sounds just like, I would have been so. Here's an example. One of my all-time favorite DC stories, and this is an extremely divisive comic book, combining Watchmen, a damn near God tier level story from the Alan Moore, combining that with the DCU for the first time, a Superman-centric story with a God character that assumes there's going to be a battle with him and how that all plays out. I got emotional reading it. I was really touched by this story. Other people I've seen online just trashing it, talking about how it went down these hollowed grounds and made light of them and trampled where they shouldn't have trampled, all that. Because again, it depends on what you connect to and how you connect to. That's what makes these characters so interesting. They've stayed relevant over the course of 100 years because of these storytellers, because different people have connected with different versions of them. Do you know there was a version of Superman that had long hair and lightning powers? Yeah, that's a thing that actually happened. I don't know who thought that was a good idea. Guaranteed somebody in the boardroom was like, our kids don't connect with Superman anymore. Let's make him cooler. And I say all that to say, I think these film critics, for all their love and proclaiming of love of pulp culture, they've forgotten one really key thing. A comic book isn't real. The world that a comic book is built in is fantasy. It's a world where monsters can just show up and be a 22-page character and then be gone to never be heard of again. It's Superman and Lois having dinner on one page and Superman battling 82 terrorists on the next page of the comic book before going on a coffee investigative journalism run with Jimmy Olsen. Like that's how those stories work. The things within those universe are reality because they're within an unreal narrative. It's a fantasy. A lot of the reviews I've seen have more or less been, I mean, if you really take those nitpicks down, well, this movie isn't movie enough. Like, this movie needed more time for characters to breathe. This movie had too much going on. This movie was a comic book. And if you like that, if you get excited about that feeling, I think you're going to really enjoy this. I liked the movie anyway. I think it's a good movie. It's not a great, you know what? I totally forgot. I have Film Flam friends. What did you think? What's your one sentence review of Superman?
Oh, shit.
I didn't know it was going to be so hard.
It is.
Yeah. It's too early to be asking these questions.
I don't know. It was fun.
It was just fun.
Off to a good start.
And I think what my one buddy says there is probably the best way to look at this review. It's a great start. This is meant to be the first film in a new universe. It doesn't need to be the sun. It doesn't need to be the greatest thing that everything else revolves around. It just has to be the starting point. It has to be the two atoms that run into each other that the universe springs out of. And I think setting the tone and giving filmmakers the ability to build films within a fictional fantasy universe where they're not bound by, hey, look how we took these cool fake superheroes and put them in a realistic setting and made it dark and made it gritty and made it more real and connected it to the modern. No, go all in. Make these fantastical. Let me just smile in the theater and enjoy all the pretty lights and aliens showing up and all of that. The new Superman, David Cornsweet, is amazing. The new Lois Lane is great. I thought Lex Luthor, for the most part, was really good. I've also heard a few people complaining that Superman is a little too hurtable, or at times emotes a little too much in this film. I disagree with that only because it's the first adventure. And Superman has always had a habit to take people lightly and to kind of give them a chance before he unleashes. And that's kind of what happens here. Superman also gets hurt. He does get hurt in the comics. Yes, he's a god tier and you have to sometimes get creative with how you do it. But you're going to have kryptonite involved that weakens him. You're going to have enemies that have different ways of approaching him. Like, I've seen people do it with different versions of kryptonite light, like red light to diminish the powers of... Man, this review is getting really nerdy. You're along for the ride or you're not, okay? If you're... I don't know. I'm going to give this film, right now, I'm going to say it's an 8.5 out of 10. 8.5, I think is a pretty good place to put it in. And I think that's a really good movie and a really good start. When you're watching some of these reviewers out there that have these huge followings, if you cross paths with them, just really pay attention to what they're saying. So many of them are saying more or less, it's a good movie, but 1 through 20 I had issues with. And a lot of these issues, some of them I agree with. Like, I have nitpicks. I mean, I feel like I've been programmed to nitpick. I was just having this conversation with a friend after the film about how the older films that we hold in such reverence that are connected to us when we're younger have flaws, crazy flaws, but we give them a pass because of just how entertaining they were and how they touched us. Now, I think the truth is all movies have a flaw or flaws, and we keep acting like they have to be these 10 out of 10s. What's the 10 out of 10 movie? A film reviewer you watched that said, this is a perfect film. There's nothing wrong with this, 10 out of 10. It doesn't happen. Usually they start with something like, hey, this is a great film, but oh gosh, I wish this happened, and this didn't make much sense, and the director did this, but oh, I had a good time with it. I think we've got to reel that back a little bit. And sometimes when a big summer blockbuster comes and just tries to deliver 2 hours of fantasy entertainment with great fights and, a lovable superhero dog and a world where Superman can be having a conversation with the love of his life, while other heroes are battling a dimensional imp outside a window and just be like, they're cool. What's up, babe? That's what I've been waiting for so long. And I'm genuinely happy. There will be some folks that can't connect to this because they just feel it's too disconnected from a filmatic perspective. But you're talking an audience score right now on Rotten Tomatoes, verified, of 95 and a critic score of 82. That's one of the highest combined ratings I've seen for a comic book film. And I think it goes to show you that most people are leaving this theater happy. The only people that seem to be less happy are the supposed lovers of film all over your social medias and TikToks that have things to say. And I think I've gotten so comfortable pulling apart things that they forget that at one time they just loved movies. I left the theater happy. My friends left the theater happy. And yeah, we nerded out and had stuff to pull apart or complain or wish that certain things have been done. I was going to mention some people that are in this, but I don't do spoilers. So I'll talk about the people in the trailer, but the side heroes were all great. Crypto is a huge hit. I saw a lot of kids clapping and really reacting to the dog in this film. I think a lot of people will, and it was a smart idea to help humanize Superman in this film, which I think it's a big message of this, to make him just a little bit more relatable. And especially later in these movies, if he moves fully into that God tier status above these other heroes, you have that relatability now set in this film with his relationships with Crypto and his relationship with Lois and how he talks to people. And there's one part in this film where he just saves a squirrel. And I don't know why, it was ridiculous, but it just spoke to me. Superman would save the squirrel. That's Superman. Like, if he has an opportunity to help or save anyone, he's going to try. And other people will scoff at that. That's just, if he had stopped and saved a kitten from a tree, which is the classic comic book, people would have been like, oh, ha, ha. But the squirrel was almost purposefully across that line to make you scoff. And when you scoff, ask yourself why. If you were Superman, would you not have saved the squirrel? Great kickoff to summer entertainment. I'm looking forward to some of the stuff on the way. If you enjoy these reviews, like, subscribe. I have a blast doing them. Ding the bell, all that sort of stuff. Share it with people. I really hope you get out there and enjoy this film. And if you don't, hey, that's okay. I mean, everybody's different. Like I said, there will definitely be some folks that just can't connect to this idea of such a fantastical presentation, something that's just pure disconnected from reality fantasy. And I think that's to be expected, but it's also sometimes why I go to the theater. Like, I enjoy a film like 28 years later, but I also enjoy a film where I can just smile and disconnect from the real world for 2 hours. So let me know what you think. Have yourself a great one, folks. Look up.